From the shores of the Atlantic in Morocco to the Red Sea in Egypt, the Roman Empire at one point ruled over the entirety of North Africa above the Sahara Desert. However, with the empire's administrative division and later the fall of the West, Roman rule would contract and then ultimately vanish or be conquered following the empire's collapse. However, while politically Roman rule from Ravenna would evaporate, the local Moorish and Berber rulers, alongside the Roman population, would continue ruling themselves until the Islamic conquests of the 7th and 8th centuries. Before I begin, as always, a quick introduction to my main sources for this video. My primary source for this video is going to be the barbarian migrations and the Roman West, because around page 407, in fact, I got open to it first try. Let's see, this map's going to be used later in video, but also the author of this book talks about the Moro-Romans. That was actually the inspiration to make this video because I was rereading this book last night and I got to that chapter. So anyway, I'll see you guys back in the video. Before we can begin, it's important to understand the geography of Roman Africa, primarily present-day Algeria and Tunisia. The coast, marked in blue, would have had a Mediterranean climate similar to the rest of the Mediterranean coast. In oranges mark the mountainous hinterland of Algeria, where Berber tribes and Moors would brave the arid steppe and valleys of these mountains. To the south, marked with yellow, is the inhospitable Sahara, which was the boundary and natural border of the Roman conquest of North Africa. Now onto Imperial Africa, which Rome had controlled since the Third Punic War in 146 BC. So by the late Empire, post 293 AD, it had controlled Africa for about 439 years. Africa had been Romanized through the establishment of Roman colonies on the Algerian coast in Tunisia and Morocco. Cities like Constantine and Caesarea maintaining their importance to today. Administratively, the Diocese of Africa consisted of the provinces of Africa, Tripolitania, Byzantina, Numidia, Mauritania Cetiphensis, Mauritania Caesariensis, and Tingitania. Militarily, the diocese's forces were under the command of the Count of Africa and the Duke of Mauritania et Caesariensis, responsible for maintaining and guarding the scattered border forts of the Limes Africanus. Religiously, Africa became a major center of Christianity, centered around Carthage, with multiple ecumenical councils being held, such as the 397 Council of Carthage. Africa was also the epicenter of the Donatist movement, an early Christian heresy which rocked the church in the 4th century. However, imperial rule would begin to fragment with the pressure of local dissent, such as the usurper Gildo and the Gildonic War of 398, and outside pressures put on the empire from the northern frontier. Imperial rule would be severed finally with the arrival of the Vandals, their Hellenic allies, in Africa in 429. The Vandalic and Vandalic kingdom would be established in 435, cutting off crucial grain shipments and revenues for the Western court. The establishment of the Vandalic kingdom would also finally separate Africa from the imperial court. Religiously, the Arian Vandals would also persecute the Chalcedonian African Romans and Berbers. However, remnants of Roman rule would coalesce around Berber and Moorish rulers across North Africa. Here you can see a map for the main source for this video. Resistance was concentrated around former Roman cities and in the Algerian highlands. One of these Rome states was the kingdom of the Mauri and the Romans, which was established following the Vandalic conquest, but pops up really in sources around the early 6th century. One such ruler that we know of, from an inscription according to Holsel, was Mizuna. Mizuna had titled himself King of the Mauri and Romans, and ruled a Moro-Roman kingdom centered around the city of Altava, one of the areas highlighted in the previous section. Another area of Moro-Roman cultural continuance was the town of Volubilis in present-day Morocco. Volubilis and the area around it would remain culturally distinct until the Arab conquest in the 8th century. Near Volubilis and across Roman Africa, there also appears these Dijar, large funeral monuments similar to the burial mounds of Anglo-Saxon Britain. These mounds, according to Hulsel, were to indicate the power and wealth of the local Mauro-Roman rulers. Relief for the Mauro-Romans from the Vandalic raids and threat would come with the Belisarius landing in North Africa in 533. The Vandalic War ended in 535 with the end of the Vandalic Kingdom and re-establishment of Roman rule in Africa. Local Moro-Roman rulers would then subordinate themselves under the Romans in return for recognition. The kings of Vltava would maintain their independence, however, and not submit to Roman rule. Africa was reorganized under the Exarchate of Africa. The African Romans would be under a century of Roman rule again before the arrival of Islam in the 7th and 8th centuries, leading to the destruction of this Moro-Roman culture as the Arab and Islamic influence overtook it. The true end of Roman Africa would come with these Islamic conquests. However, the Romans in Africa would put up some of the fiercest resistance against the Islamic conquest. Also states about the kingdom of Vltava, the coherence of such a realm is argued for by the fact that it was to put up more prolonged resistance to the Arab conquest of the region in the late 7th century than either the Byzantine provinces to its east or the Visigothic kingdom to its north. Roman rule didn't end with the fall of the province in 435, but in fact persisted for multiple centuries after. Blending and forming unique Moro-Roman culture. As such, it survived, in air quotes, longer than any of the other former Western provinces, but sadly met its end with the Islamic conquest. I'm the Dark Ages with Nick, and this has been the Romano-African Kingdoms.